Just maybe just a few seconds and we can start. Okay, I think that we can start because it is already past 33 and yeah, people are joining. We have around like 25 people that have joined us. People will come, I guess, in just 5 more minutes, but let's just start. So let me say hello to everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me well. And I hope that you are all at home and safe wherever you are actually now, whether it be Armenia, Singapore, United Arab Emirates, Pakistan, United States, Spain, Estonia, because we had participants from all of these countries and regions during our previous webinars. And whoever is joining for the very first time, welcome to the third webinar of the webinar series called Evolving Trends in the World of Total Rewards, the Power of Analytics and AI. And many of our participants, and me included, actually have been really waiting for the third webinar, well, because of the hot topic. And unfortunately, this is the last one with Sajjad. And in our first webinar, we talked about total reward scheme, and after which we dive deeper into how to drive changes into total reward scheme with analytics. And right now, and today we're gonna go deeper, dive deeper into analytics to talk about more how the our favorite buzzword AI and HR fields are connected to each other. And for our new participants, let me introduce myself and also Sajjad. My name is Mariam. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lucky Carrot, which is a platform helping companies to boost employee engagement with peer-to-peer recognition and reward and appreciation. And today, for the third time, we have Sajjad Parmar, who is the head of reward in Asian Pacific countries at eBay. And he has a lot of experience in talent management, HR transformation, acquisition, performance management, and of course, the HR analytics. And during Sajjad's presentation, please feel free to chat and communicate with other participants and leave comments and say your thoughts and ideas. And if you have questions, please submit them in the Q&A section below on your screen. You can see it. I will speak them up during our 20 minutes of Q&A session, or during the presentation if I feel like we are on the same page with the question. And during the Q&A, you can also direct your questions to Sajjad yourself by clicking on the raise hand icon. I will unmute you. And I actually announced during our previous webinars that we decided to do some giveaways, choosing one winner per webinar. And our first winner from the first webinar was Sandrine. And today at the end of the webinar, we'll choose our second winner from webinar 2 together. And more about this will be shared actually in the end. Well, I think I've covered everything. We can start now, Sajjad.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope you all can hear me okay. Just type out if there is an issue in terms of the volume. I will increase it more if need be. So again, hope everybody's doing well and keeping safe. Thanks for the sort of cover up. Today is our third and last session in this series on total reward. We covered compensation, benefits, and performance management in the first one. We went a bit deeper into analytics in our last one, and then obviously we're going to talk about the AI-driven HR decision and whether we are there yet or not. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I hope all of you are able to see it.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting topic in today's time. We're seeing this array of new technology and tools coming in, and we just wanted to see and talk about. And again, I'm by no means I'm an expert on this topic. It's not really my area of expertise, but I'm just here to share some thinking and some observations I've seen around And it's really to drive that sort of discussion around, what does it mean for us? Are we there as a function to let tools and platforms driven by AR make decisions for us? Um, and you know, I'm starting with the definition on the screen, and I'm hoping everybody is probably well aware of this more than even I am in terms of what does AI mean as such. But the purpose is not to share with you the definition, but to use the definition to really talk about essentially the market out there. We've got a lot of platforms and tools out there. This is just one example. In Singapore
Sajjad, I'm
alone,
so sorry to interrupt you, but here we have a person is saying that asking you actually to be slightly louder.
okay, all right, I'm gonna try
Just,
and increase the volume more,
yeah.
and just let me know if you can hear me better. So yeah, just shout out if the volume is a problem. So this is just one example of the kind of tools available right now. In Singapore alone, we've got about 100, 150 platforms in HR tech space. Predominantly, most of them are new. Um, and a majority of them, they say that the platform is driven by AI. Now, interestingly, obviously, and we'll go through, why that's not possible all the time. But I attended a session last week run by one of my friends, and he invited this gentleman called Anton Fishman, who's an expert on AI and HR platforms based out of UK. And I asked him point blank that, in your view, how many of these platforms are actually run by AI, like true AI, machine learning at the back? And he said less than 50%. So, and why I say this is that, we've, I think, come to a place where this word and this phrase has become a bit overly used and abused, if I can say that everybody's claiming that the tool is driven by AI technology at the back. I think the reality is that, again, the platform is to serve a purpose, and it could be that the platform has very sophisticated data structures, decision trees, random forest at the back. So, it's not to say that it's not doing what it's saying, but perhaps the use of the word AI is perhaps not the right way to qualify whether that platform is driven by AI or not. And we'll talk about why that is the case. But I just wanted to sort of qualify that and say that, hey, by the way, not every tool is run by AI or can or it should be, for example. And I'll go back to what I shared, a couple of weeks back in terms of the purpose, right? We're always talking about the what and the how. I want us to think, especially in HR, why we're doing something. Why do we need AI? What purpose is it serving? How is it going to help us make better decisions, for example, right? So I go back to the first stage again. We want to start with why we're doing this, and if it makes sense, and if that's where the technology comes in and helps us, then absolutely why not? And I think there are many platforms out there which can probably serve the purpose by having sophisticated data platforms, sophisticated decision trees at the back, and that works as well, right? To a client, to me as a company, I'm not concerned about what technology is at the back. If it's providing me with serving me my need, then to me as a comp leader, I don't really care whether it's AI or decision tree at the back. It's providing me with a service that I really need. So I'll stop there for the time being. We had a couple of questions we wanted to ask you guys and just get a sense of where you all are before we get started. So I'll pass it back. We'll run a couple of questions with you, and then we'll carry on.
Sure. Thank you for reminding for that, Sajjad. Dear participants, like we have just a few questions that we want to ask you. Please, yeah, I'm launching the poll right now. You should be already able to see that on your screens. Just read the questions and answer them, and we'll be able to understand like where you are now. And this is totally anonymous. Don't worry about that. And at the end of the questionnaire, I'll also share the results, and the results you will also be able to see them on your screens. So Sajjad, so this is the title that goes HR Tech 125 plus companies reinventing human resources. So this is actually on a worldwide basis.
My understanding is yes, but again, like I said, this is probably at a given point in time. I think this chart actually keeps changing. So it's very much possible that this chart, even if it's 6 months old, the amount of applications that are coming in almost on a monthly basis is just staggering, especially just in HR itself. Like I said, in Singapore alone, in the past 2 years, I've seen about 70 to 80 new products that have come in across
Oh,
the different spectrums.
and have you used any of them, let's say in your HR practices, or maybe let's say your friends have used and shared it with you? Like, do you have any clue
I
on that?
Yeah, maybe a couple of them. So I think there are a couple of platforms, but again, those are mostly quite big applications. So there are
Mm-hmm.
a couple of workforce admin applications that my
Uh-huh.
previous company is using, but many of these platforms are very niche. That means they're only catering to a very small section of, the market. So, for example, there are
Mm-hmm.
many sort of job boards that are very, very specific. There's a job board that only looks at F&B roles, which is very, very
Mm-hmm.
unique, very, very niche. There's a job board that only does, for example, part-time contractors, right? And there are a lot of assessment companies who are doing talent assessment, psychometric testing. Again, it's on my area of expertise, but I think they're sort of new platforms, and
Mm-hmm.
the reach is at this point in time quite small as well. So they haven't kicked in the high gear. Some of the larger platforms are well known. For example, Workday.
Yeah.
There are a couple of other platforms in terms of assessment. We'll talk about one that I'll share later. But again, yeah, this is a moving chart.
Mm-hmm. And have you tried actually innovate something at eBay, let's say?
We have, but I wouldn't call it an AI. Like I said, we have something that I'm going to share later in compensation.
Oh, okay.
It's something that we built internally, and it's something quite out there. So yeah, I'll
Oh,
share
okay,
about it
got it.
in a bit.
Uh-huh. Actually, the poll has been going on so far, and
We
we
should
just use the time
maybe,
to talk a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll just share in, let's say, five. Like, we have just a very little time left for the poll, and it will
yeah.
disappear in three, two, 1.5, and one. I'm just ending the poll right now and hope everyone just could do that. Okay, right now I'm just sharing the results so that you can see and get and be aware of the other participants overall, let's say, where they are.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good spread in terms of where people are in terms of using tools, but also if they're not using it. Clearly, performance analytics is something that everybody is quite interested in talent acquisition, and I'm on talent acquisition. I'll be able to share an example, so hopefully that will help everyone. Okay, so perfect. This is very useful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'll get moving on the next slide. And in the context that I've just shared, and I don't want to give you all these examples, but I want to pick two examples in terms of what does real world applications of AI look at, right? And how does it work? Obviously, I'm sure all of you know this equally as well. So I'll use eBay's ShopBot as an example, which uses machine learning and predictive modeling. If you go and buy something on eBay as an example, and you go regularly and you search around what you would like to use, um, what will happen is that the AI at the back, it looks at the kind of inventory that you actually search each time. eBay has about 1.1 billion plus SKUs on the platform. And so you can imagine that if you're looking for something, it can be a pain. But what the AI does at the back is it says, hey, by the way, Sajjad usually goes and usually always looks for black shoes, size 9 to 11, with a price point between $30 to $50. So what it will do is it will sift out all the inventory within this category, and next time I log in, it will give me that result upfront on my first page landing page. So it's really helping me save time efficiently, trying to simplify what would take me maybe 2 minutes to figure out the list of shoes that I want to buy at. That's one example. The other one is the chatbot, right? And what the chatbot does is that if I, rather than calling somebody and spending 15 minutes trying to figure out I want to return a product, all you do in the chatbot is say, hey, by the way, I want to return a product. The AI at the back already knows the buying history that I have used, or the one that I've transacted. It will say, is this the product that you want to return back? All I have to say is yes. And then the AI at the back pretty much takes care of everything else. So no longer do I have to ask 15 questions to say, hey, by the way, this is the product I'm not happy with and I want to return. The AI at the back essentially looks at the whole of this and makes life so much easier. And this is actually machine learning and predictive modeling at the back. The other example that I want to give is basically Facebook. I don't use Facebook, but what I understand is that it uses pretty much every aspect of AI. So when you log in, the posts that you see from your network, right, it's actually driven by machine learning. You see a lot of advertisements on Facebook, and that's really machine learning at the back, because it's the advertisement looks at, hey, by the way, what's my location, what's my profile, and so it's going to give me advertisement linked to the kind of profile I have, the location that I am in. It even will share posts by the time. So I'm based in Singapore. What kind of posts I should be seeing based on my network? If I have 1,000 friends all over the world, whose post should come first and who should come second? So all of this is being done at the back. So again, very, very powerful use of AI in real life application. With that in mind, what are we trying to solve for in HR? So I'll go back to the question I asked: why do we want to use AI in decision making in HR, right? And each time that I ask myself that question, there are essentially two things that come to my mind, right? Why do I want to do this in HR? The first one to me, which is very important, is consistent, fair, and transparent decision making. I've been in HR for now about 19, 20 years, and I can tell you throughout my time, I've always been pushed back by my non-HR friends in terms of the decisions that we make in HR. They're always challenging me like, hey, by the way, you did that for person A, how come it didn't apply for person number B? Or how come you're never transparent about your policies? And how come that decision done for that person or for me was not fair? I feel it's unfair, right? And I am privy to that fact that at the companies that I've worked for, and the decisions that I've seen being made definitely are not always consistent. They're definitely not always fair, and we're not always transparent, right? Sometimes we create policies by person for large organizations, and I've seen that in hand personally. And so, if we as humans are making decisions that are not consistent, fair, and transparent, to me as an HR leader, I would like to make sure that if I want to implement a tool or a system or a platform, AI or non-AI, I'm going to improve that. I'm going to improve the decision making by being consistent. So everything, so the same thing applies for everybody. It's absolutely fair. There is no special treatment for a certain group of people, and I'm absolutely transparent about it. And we talked about transparency for pay in our first session, but I don't see why we can't be transparent in all of our decision making as far as HR is concerned, because it increases trust that people have in HR and the decisions we make. A second, obviously, is very simple, which is automation in the workplace. We know the kind of a lot of work we do is non-value add. We can simplify that, we can re-engineer that, we can automate that. And if you really think about all the automation that has taken place over the past 10 to 15 years in HR, the kind of tools that have come up, automation in HR operations, automation in salary management, automation and compensation, automation and learning and development, all the tools that are available now, it has really, really moved us up a needle. And there's still, I think, a room for improvement as far as automation is concerned. So to me, why I want to do this? I want to do this because I can automate a lot of things. I can take out the non-value add of the stuff we do and put a system in place and then really focus my people on adding value through either working with the business, understanding what the problems are, and then really adding value through decision making using the tools we have at hand. Essentially what I'm trying to say is that we're looking for that leap, right? We want to be great, not just good, right? We're looking for excellence. Now, excellence either in terms of, like I said, fair, transparent decision making, or whether it's automating. But essentially, we want to move the needle up. We want to move the bar up in HR, and we can, I think, do that through technology. We've already seen fantastic examples over the past few years, and I think we can do it even better, right? So what I want to do is actually share with you maybe 4 examples of the HR areas that, in my view, are using AI or data models, right? And again, this is just my view. This is an example. This does not encompass the entire area of the things we do in HR. But I just thought these could be a nice, way of sort of just having a discussion on these areas. I think the biggest, in my view, the biggest, difference we've made is this entire aspect of talent acquisition, right? And the entire piece of things. So from recruitment end to end, job boards, there are many, many tools that I do feel are actually AI based. This is one example of a tool that's AI driven. It's actually run by my friend who runs a gamified recruitment platform. It's called the Talent Games. And what it does is it's essentially for millennial talent. So usually for graduate programs, he runs this platform for almost all the multinational companies in South Asia. And why I think this is the reason why this works is if you look at the platform in its entirety, right, and what it's trying to accomplish. Most of the assessments that I've given personally have either be behavioral, they're only maybe personality, or maybe they're cognitive, right? This tool is actually combining all of them together. So it's a situation-based tool that looks at behavioral assessment. It's got a neuroscience-based gamified platform that looks at cognitive abilities. It looks at all the personality types and aptitude test. If you assume that there are about 15 to 20 questions in each of them with a variety of answers and options, we're looking at 80 to 100 questions as an example with multiple answers. Now, if you look at a candidate size of 2,000 candidates giving all these answers, it makes sense to have an AI technology at the back because the amount of data we're collecting is just massive, right? And one of the fundamental things you probably know about AI is that AI needs a lot of data to work on. The algorithms at the back need a lot of data to test on. You can't have few data points and say, by the way, AI is going to work. It doesn't work like that. The technology in its essence needs big data, right? So this platform essentially looks at assessment from a very holistic, rounded perspective. I can tell you myself so many times when I applied for jobs and I've said, hey, by the way, can you go and give this test, right? Many years back, I would go and I'd be like, yeah, but you're only asking me this one set of questions, but it's only one side of my personality. What about like the other side? You know, I don't get to tell you as a candidate what the other things I can do or what my other skills are. And so that has always been a big question mark in terms of all these assessments that we've had, that we're only looking at one side of assessment. And so the thing I like about this platform is that it's truly holistic. It's 360 degrees, as we say in HR, right? It's looking at all the different aspects. Now, I'll give you an example which is very interesting. You might be a company that says, okay, I want to hire 15 sales graduate trainees, right? And you have these competencies that you're looking for. And the tool helps you drive and you get those 15 guys in the end, that these are the best scoring guys based on the competencies and cognitive abilities and all these skill set. But that's where AI comes in and says, by the way, when these 2,000 people gave the test, there were 3 kids who actually came out very strong on negotiating skills. And so you could be like, okay, if these guys are master negotiators, maybe I want to put them in procurement, because what procurement does is actually negotiate with vendors, right? So AI is actually now helping you come up with stuff which you technically wouldn't normally do. It would say, hey, by the way, I've got these 4 candidates that are amazing at diplomacy. So I'd be like, yeah, I want to put them in HR, you know, because HR are master diplomats, right? So, you know, AI comes in handy in these cases where it's giving you perspective, which typically normally you could, but it would take you a lot of time. It would take a lot of effort, right? And then the other advantages of a platform like that, again, a lot of this is done by AI, is number one, be inclusive. We know, and we talked about biases that we have, right? Pay biases is one thing, but we have biases when we hire people, when we promote people, when we evaluate people. So even when we're hiring, we want to make sure that we have no biases. When candidates apply to a platform like that, it doesn't matter what gender you are, what background you have, you're able to apply, regardless of your background. It's real life scenarios. So it puts people in scenarios which are real life. Hey, by the way, you're a project manager and you have $2 million and you have 5 resources, and this is the problem, solve it, right? So the tool allows employees to sit in real life scenarios and test it out. And that's fantastic, right? Give back, so give really personalized feedback. Now, if you had 2,000 candidates and you wanted to give feedback to all of them individually, it's going to take 2 years, right? So with a platform like that and with AI at the background, it's much easier. Obviously, we know millennials prefer digitally driven platforms, and so the experience that you have with your candidates is really, really different, right? And then number 5 and number 6 is together, reduce time to hire. Like I already said, you're not going through 2,000 resumes and interviewing 500 people. Both the candidates are happy in terms of the time they're saving and the value add the platform is giving. Lower drop off, which is so important. I have applied to so many jobs where, you know, after like filling 5 pages, I'm like, okay, I just can't do this anymore. It's not even worth applying for this job, right? So when you have a more engaging platform, it really changes the experience, and the people that you're trying to hire, the drop off is going to be a lot lower. And like I said, unbiased AI insights. I'll give you one example, that you're hiring for sales guys, but AI can actually tell you, hey, by the way, you could hire these 3 people for procurement and these 4 people for HR. This is just one example. The analytics that you can drive, that you interview 2,000 people, and you can drive a number of analytics through this platform. And that's where I think the power of AI comes in. It looks at things that would take us a lot of time, a lot of resources, and may not still be able to find the value that we're looking for. So from my perspective, the whole talent acquisition piece is something that's really adding value to HR. And I would definitely think that we can drive a lot of decision making using a platform like that. The second example I have is really in compensation. The question is it data-driven compensation or AI-driven compensation? And which companies are doing this? And to me, in my view, I don't, as far I could be wrong, I don't think we have AI-driven compensation as of right now. There could be platforms out there which I'm not aware of, but based on what I've seen, it seems most of these platforms, most of what companies are doing is more data-driven. That means they have very advanced models at the back, very advanced decision trees, random forests that are driving these platforms and products. I want to talk about two companies that are doing something internally. One is Facebook. From what I understand, they're doing really something fantastic as far as data models is concerned. And it's eBay. That's my company that's come up with an internal data-driven model. And this is one example out of that. And what we've done essentially is that we have come up with a model that changes the way we review our people's compensation, both salary, bonus, and equity. And what we've done typically is, as you know, in companies, managers get a sheet and they say, by the way, how much salary increase you want to give, how much bonus you want to give. What we've done is that we've said we want to change this dialogue. We want to change this dialogue by really assessing people for the value that they're adding, right? And there are two parts to it. One is a change of pay philosophy, which I'm going to talk about later. And the first one is reward differentiation. So in the first step, what we do is that managers go in and say, by the way, how do you want to differentiate employees on stock and bonus? And if you want to promote somebody, or if you think somebody's a critical talent. So the first step is you have the sliders, which actually allows you to differentiate. Lean and means they are amazing. You want to give them maximum. And minimal means they did not do really well and you want to give them less, right? So managers, if I have a team of 10 people, I can go in and move the sliders left or right and differentiate between these employees. That becomes one input into this data-driven model that looks at a variety of factors. And I could have 10 reports in 10 different countries, right? So I have 10 employees in 10 different countries. Each of them have a different budget. Each of them have a different, let's say, rating. Each of them are on a different grade. And so the model actually looks at a number of these factors, which I, as a manager, would never be able to understand, right? Because if I'm comparing somebody who reports to me in, let's say, in Malaysia, then I need to compare how is my employee comparing with other employees in Malaysia, and so on and so forth. So if I look at just all the factors, right, it's just impossible for me to be completely neutral about employees. And I know that sometimes I will have biases towards some employees. How do I take out those biases? And more importantly, the considerations are, how do I make sure the salary increases are equitable? Again, I don't have a gender bias. Number two, bonus differentiation. I want to make sure that my top guy gets top dollars, right? And then when I'm promoting somebody, I'm giving enough promotion increase that it justifies a promotion. If my country budget is 5% and if I give somebody 7% as a promotion increase, I'm sorry, that's not motivating. It doesn't work, right? So this model looks at all these variety of factors and then gives an output in terms of what the salary recommendation should be, what the bonus recommendation should be, and what the equity recommendation should be. Keeping in mind the differentiation factor, keeping in mind pay equity factor, keeping in mind making sure that my top talent gets maximum amount of money and people who have not done well gets less. Again, I don't think AI is there yet because I think this model needs to be tested a fair amount of time. There's just too many complications in this model, right? So I think we have a very sophisticated, we've got actually a couple of PhDs in math who have come up with these really fancy models. So again, this is a data-driven model. It's not an AI-based model. I would love to see maybe in about 2 to 3 years time with the amount of data that we collect, we get to a place where we have algorithms in the back and machine learning that's actually able to do what the models do now. But at this point in time, I don't think we're there yet. The third example I have is on HR operations or shared services. What definitely exists right now are these AI-based workforce admin platforms. So to give you a simple example, you have actually so-called a HR chatbot, where I could say, by the way, I could just type, which is available to my employees in my company, and say, by the way, how many vacations days do I have left? And the machine learning at the back looks at the data in my HRMS system and says, I've got 13 days left. And I'll just simply type, hey, I want to take next week off from 21st to 27th. And essentially it picks up those dates, it understands what I'm saying, and it informs the relevant party or it updates the system automatically. right? That's basically AI at the background, and that's happening right now. I could simply say, by the way, can you share with me the travel policy on international travel? And it would basically just look at the system at the back, and from the portal, share with me the Word document that basically talks about what the policy is. So that's machine learning at the back, and that's actually happening right now. There are a number of platforms, big platforms, um, who are able to provide this service. Now, if I go into HR shared services, the self-servicing modules, which is basically companies have portals, and I go and I basically need to look for something. They are very sophisticated. Everything is online, but perhaps they're not driven by AI. So I think there's a little bit of time before we get to a place where, like to the chatbot example, we get to that place. It's very much possible that maybe in a few years' time, or very soon actually, we might have a Siri for HR, where I just say, by the way, rather than even tapping, I just say, hey, by the way, HR Siri, I want to apply for leave next week, and that's all I say. And they're able to replicate that and do everything based on machine learning and voice recognition. And voila, my leaves are updated in the system. So perhaps we're on the way there, but definitely chatbots definitely exist right now, driven by AI, and a great example of how we're simplifying this process, where the transaction that would have taken maybe 5 to 7 minutes now literally takes like 20 seconds. And the last example I have is analytics. And I think it's like a mixed bag here. We've got tools that drive analytics through AI. So for example, the talent games, the example that I talked about first, actually does use analytics at the back. So because there's so much amount of data, there's these algorithms that you're able to drive analytics through AI. But there are a lot of platforms who are not there yet. So this example actually is using a very sophisticated data visualization tool, but at the background, there's no AI. And all it's telling me is, by the way, for the particular organization for 2019, what was the headcount change, right? How many people did I hire? How many people left? What was the net change? And then similarly, if I look at attrition, right? So I could say I want attrition by tenure, I want attrition by grade. Again, it looks really fancy, but it's basically just a visualization tool that's supported by a fancy HRMS at the background. So the visualization tool is really, really strong. But is it run by AI? Perhaps not. Could it run by AI? Maybe yes. Maybe there are platforms out there that are able to do this, but at least at this point in time, I doubt it. So again, just an example of, we don't need to have sophisticated AI tools at the back. You still have platforms and technology right now that is able to give you amazing visualization, amazing data in really nice formats that really drives powerful decision making. But to the point I was making earlier, really simplifies and automates a process. HR teams are now able to drive more value add work rather than figuring out, oh my God, this massive Excel file, and how do I convert this into some charts. And again, from a analytics point of view, I think where AI is really going to really add value is this whole predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics, right? That's the end game. Rather than us spending all this time trying to build tools and platforms, AI will come in and say, by the way, based on these 5 factors, I will tell you that these 40 people in the organization are at the risk of leaving. They're a high risk category. And so that's the value AI can add, because it's going to look at factors that we typically would take a lot of time to understand. And so I think that's the next evolution in terms of analytics, where AI comes in and says, hey, by the way, I'm going to be able to help predict who's going to leave. And leaving is just one part, right? It could even start helping in terms of that these 100 people that you hire, the AI is able to predict that these 30 employees potentially are going to be your high performers. And these are the people to watch out for. So again, predictive analytics and prescriptive is something that where AI can really, really add value. I talked about the data dependency, which is the fact that any model needs a lot of data. We cannot make good decisions without good data. And so I think the dependency is that we need to have a lot of data to test out these tools. Whether we have sophisticated data models or whether we have AI platforms at the back, we need data. And fundamentally, it comes from data models. I think at the end of everything, we need to have very strong data models. Data models that will be used by data structures or by AI platforms. We need big data. I was reading an article last week where it talked about, and I can't explain because it was very technical, but essentially what it was saying was that you can have AI platforms which actually use data that already exists, hundreds and thousands of data points, and there are platforms that can evolve once data starts to come in. But the fundamental difference being that data has to be at the front of it. You cannot build anything without sophisticated data.
And Sajjad, I'm so sorry, but what kind of articles or where did you read that?
Oh, I just went on Google and said machine learning data. I suggest.
Oh, okay. But are there
Yeah.
some articles or are there some, I don't know, maybe let's say HR influencers you follow on their articles?
No, I mean, I usually read pretty much anything and everything, something that's
Uh-huh.
providing a different point of view. So I'm not fixated on that. I'm only going to read articles from this one particular source. I
Are
think,
you yourself writing them?
no, I'm not, not writing them right now, but
Not
I
really.
think the fact is that there's so much information out there. And it's, like I said, just go on Google and say HR machine learning, or something like that, or AI for HR, or just machine learning and what does machine learning mean? And there's so much information out there that everybody can just go and really read basics of it. I don't need to be an expert. I just need to appreciate how it works. Um,
Okay.
And then, in terms of the limitations to adoption, so one thing which is a bit difficult to implement in terms of AI platforms is number one, talent availability. You need talent who understands. This is a subject matter heavy dependent topic, right? I can't just become an expert in AI. I need to have a degree in this. And as you know, talent is scarce, especially in this area. If you look at how many people out of universities are actually doing hardcore degrees in AI, it's not enough. The kind of demand we have, the supply is just not enough. So that's one limitation to adoption, right? If you don't have the right talent, you can't implement something like that. Data privacy, especially for HR, is a huge concern. We've seen all these GDPRAs and other policies come up. We have to be very careful how we manage them. Putting an AI platform does not solve the problem around data privacy, so we have to be very careful that we make sure that our governance and our compliance of these tools and the way we manage data is absolutely foolproof. Maintenance, again, we've seen actually examples where Siri went crazy and Alexa went crazy and gave really wrong recommendations. It's got AI in the background, but if you don't maintain that system well, if you don't maintain the algorithms, the data that's coming in, how it's filtering, it can lead to problems, especially as far as data privacy is concerned. So we have to make sure that the maintenance is being done regularly. AI platforms are not easiest to integrate. I think data platforms are easy because you can integrate them with other platforms. Uh, Obviously, I think this will improve it. The integration with other tools and platforms is going to become easy. But at this point in time, from what I understand, again, what I understood from my friend who runs this platform is that it's not the easiest thing to integrate with other platforms. But hopefully, I think with a period of time, this is going to become easy. Time horizon, it takes a while. Like I said, we've been doing this data modeling for the past 3 years. I still don't think we are anywhere close to where we want to be in terms of AI usage. So you need to give time because collection of data, evaluation of data, assessment of data needs time. You can't just jump forward 2 years and say, okay, I've done the product, AI is from day one. Data comes in, you evaluate, you put algorithms, it takes a bit of time. And I said before, not every form of data needs to be AI. It can be sophisticated data models, and it works just fine. So to sum it all up, what does it mean for HR, right? First one, the new HR team, right? We are going to have amazing tools in HR for small companies, big companies. Is our HR team, are we geared up for this? Do we understand how this tool works? Can we answer the questions that our business is going to ask us? It's very easy to go and say, oh, I want the best tool out there. But is our team, or do our teams understand how these works? We're going to, like I said, take away the non-value add from our employees and ask them to really focus on value add. Are we ready for that? I've seen a couple of implementations in a couple of other companies where they implemented all these fancy tools. HR team was not ready, and it was a disaster. And so I think before we jump into these, and so like the tool that I'm talking about that we use in eBay on compensation, we have to make sure that me as a comp leader actually have to understand how that model works, because my business comes to me and challenges me. I don't understand this model. How do you know that the so-called data model at the back is making the right decisions? If I can't understand that, I can't explain it to my business, and so I lose that credibility. So we have to, number one, train our HR team. The whole aspect of self-servicing is going to increase, right? Because we are seeing all these tools, what they're trying to do is pass the bucket from what HR does and the time we spent to more self-servicing, manager self-servicing, employee self-servicing. All these tools are essentially to do that, predominantly a lot of them. So we have to make sure that we are ready to be able to move that needle from the system and the services that we're providing right now to a model that is very self-servicing. And that means that we have to understand the impact it is going to have on HR processes. A lot of processes can be automated. A lot of processes we can put on self-servicing, but maybe not all of them. So we need to have this definition of what can be put on self-servicing, what can we not. And this is the area of whole HR operations, which is a huge area. Pay philosophy. So I'll tell you what the latest thinking on pay philosophy is. The latest thinking on pay philosophy is that companies, especially in high tech, are saying that we will no longer differentiate performance linked to pay, right? That means if I am the best performer and my colleague is, let's say, not that great, we are both going to get the same salary increase. Now, traditionally, as you know, our entire history of performance management is based on the fact that if you do well, you get a higher salary increase. But the latest thinking is that, no, you get paid to do a job. Everybody should be getting the same pay. Where we would differentiate performance is through bonus, faster promotions, and equity and recognition. Because the reason why this is happening is because of the biases that we have created. I talked about this in my first webinar, that we've got all these biases. And if we continue to have these pay for performance linked to salary, the biases are not going to help it, because I'm going to each time evaluate and say, I think, that person should be getting more salary increase. Especially, we know this impacts the most as far as gender is concerned. So if you want to take out gender biases, we have to move to a model which says everybody gets the same pay. Yes, people who do well generally, they should get bigger bonuses, they should get promoted faster, they should get more career development, and they should get more equity. So that's the new pay philosophy, and it's not easy to implement. And then lastly, what is the impact on talent strategy? I'm going to have 5 amazing tools. How does it impact my talent strategy? How do they intervene, and how do they transform the way I manage my talent? From acquisition, let's say I get the Gamified platform. So if I implement that, how is it going to impact my talent strategy, which is acquiring employees through a platform? If I have a very sophisticated compensation tool, how does it impact my talent strategy? And I can definitely tell you, practicing this right now, that the way we drive compensation now is actually having an impact on the talent strategy, because we're looking at employees in a different way. How are we rewarding employees, right? How am I going to promote employees? How much money I'm going to give to these employees? And then similarly as well, if I'm going to have these self-servicing platforms, HR chatbots, does it have an impact on talent strategy or not? So HR leaders need to think in its entirety and say, bringing a tool is fantastic, but what impact does it have on the entire supply chain of human capital? So with that, I will stop. I hope I've been able to share just some snippets in terms of the kind of things we need to think about as far as AI and AI-driven HR decision making is concerned. I hope you're able to share some of your thoughts, and if you have any questions, then I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Sajjad, for the powerful presentation. Actually, we have already questions submitted in the Q&A section. Let me just pick them up until people can come up with the other questions. So the first question was from Mariam Gregorian, who's saying hi to everyone. And she's saying, Sajjad, do you think that in the nearest future, the interviews will be conducted by the AI? Do you see any problems regarding it?
First answer is yes, it's already happening. So it seems there are already platforms who are actually able to, so you get a question, right? And then you give an answer on video platforms or whatever these interview platforms are. And there's actually AI at the back who's able to understand what you're saying using voice recognition and then ask other questions. So to answer your question, yes, it's already happening. My answer to your second question is I don't see any issues with that. Look, at the end of the day, if the AI at the background is doing an unbiased job, it's what I talked about, right? If I give you the example of that platform, which is it's looking at your personality, it's looking at your cognitive abilities, it's looking at your other aptitude, for example. If a platform is able to evaluate all these things correctly, I think it's absolutely fine. What we want to drive is a fair and transparent assessment, right? And if it's whether it's AI based or something else based, to me, I don't care. I think we need to be fair.
And have you used them actually, Sajjad?
I have not. So again, I haven't had an interview in 5 years. So, but I think if I do, I wouldn't mind. I've given video interviews, but I don't think that was a AI based at that point in time.
Okay, got it. Another question that we have, and actually I really love this question. It says, it is from Nune Gregoria. She is saying, dear Sajjad, do you think that using AI in HR will somehow bring to the reduction of HR specialists?
Classic question that everybody asks,
Yes.
that does AI technology reduce? My answer, and again, I'm not the expert in any way, but my answer is probably a no. The reason why I say this is that I'll give you an example. 20 years back when I graduated, right? This is the
Okay.
dot-com bubble burst in 2000, and the whole thing was, oh my God, AI is sorry, software engineering is coming in. We're going to have computers, and everybody's going to lose their jobs, right? Thankfully, in 20 years onwards, that hasn't happened, right? We've had, if you think about the last 10 years, maximum amount of in most countries, the unemployment rates have been really, really low. What we need to figure out is a way that how do we upskill ourselves. If you just think about the last 5 years, the amount of jobs in the IT function that we have created globally is just ridiculous, right? We've got this whole new aspect of working. Just because AI is coming in and is going to help us do a job does not mean our jobs go away. What you and I have to think about, two things. Number one, how are jobs evolving? So that's absolutely, I think, holds for everybody. We have to make sure that we learn new skills to keep afloat. Number two, what kind of new jobs that are coming in? If you had thought about how many data scientist jobs existed 10 years back, you'd be like, why do we need data scientists? But if you look at it right now, every company is looking for data scientist jobs. We're looking for software engineers. We're looking for new skills, right? The whole area of analytics has come in. You might be
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, but HR is going to take away our jobs. But hey, by the way, you should still have people who will need to be really, really good with understanding analytics. So and we talked about this last week, that a lot of HR professionals are saying, I want to learn analytics. And that's an area that we could evolve into. That
Mm-hmm.
all of our HR jobs, as part of our basic skill set, we need to understand analytics. So I don't think that AI is going to take away our jobs. I think what you and I have to do, number one, is to upskill ourselves, understand what's happening in the market, and then, like I said, think about what kind of new jobs that are coming in. I think new jobs will always continue to evolve, and we just got to make sure that we understand that.
I totally agree with you because the HR role in an organization is the most human-centric actually role in organization. You cannot actually deal with people without a person actually, right? And with just only an AI. And I think that instead of losing the jobs, HR managers should become like more competent
Yeah.
about, first of all, learning new trendy solutions, and then being able to use them very well and drive results in a company.
Yeah.
The other question is that Lilith is saying, thank you for the presentation. I would like to ask if AI impacts on employee branding.
I assume when you say employee branding, that's employee branding in terms of when we go out and hire for employees. If you're, so maybe I didn't understand the question correctly, so I'll try and answer that. So yeah, just correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
It depends. So usually employee branding exercise is usually a manual exercise. I'll give you an example. Companies go out and they have these platforms or seminars or conferences where they go and talk about job seminars, right? Many companies are there. I don't think there's any involvement of AI. I think where AI comes in is when you start to interact with the candidates. So the first point of contact when a candidate applies is when your AI comes in. Whether, so technically you will say, by the way, we've got these jobs, please go on, for example, eBay's website and apply or put your profile in. That's where AI comes in. So employee branding, you could use that to say, hey, by the way, eBay does its assessment through an AI-based technology, and you could use that to influence your employment branding. So when I go to a job fair, I could have a big board that says all my hiring is through an AI-driven assessment platform. Now that could be very exciting for, like I said, millennials, because they like all this stuff, right? So maybe from that point of view, yes, it can drive employer branding. The example that I gave of my friend, the feedback he's shared is that of the, I don't know, 100,000 plus people that have used the platform, the general feedback of all the millennials who have used his platform has been very positive. They feel that when they go through an online platform, a tech platform, gamified platform, they feel a lot more engaged than the manual process. So if you have AI at the back, I think it can help. Again, I'm not going to say that you need to have AI at the back. If it's a platform that does work without AI as well, like I said, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and there is another question, which is, almost something that we have covered, but it goes like, what if the HR managers themselves are not ready or do not want to use AI at all? Like, what is your practice and what is your experience in this, Sajjad?
I think sooner or later we won't have a choice. Let me put it this way: like if you think about the evolution of let's take 10 years back, right? Not every company used to have sophisticated HR management systems, right? A lot of
Exactly.
companies had manual Excel files and everything. What happened is that the cost of implementing something became cheaper than doing it manually. So there's a cost element to it, that these platforms eventually are going to become, like I said, there are 100 companies doing talent assessment. The platforms are going to become very cheap, and the amount of time it takes for you to manage a manual process, it's going to cost you more than getting the platform, not to mention the value add. So I think over a period of time, if companies don't, any sort of platform that they're not going to use, I think you'll be forced to. I think it's just a matter of time. Like I said, if you can upskill your HR teams upfront, it gives you a little bit of advantage. If I think about talent attraction, right? Companies who are out there very progressive have already been using platforms, and I can definitely tell you that it's making a difference. My first company that I worked for has always been very progressive in all these things, and the adoption of technology has been really good with them. And I've seen that because they've adopted technology and processes a lot earlier, they've always had an upper hand in the market as far as talent attraction and development is concerned.
Yeah. Um, there are actually a lot of questions. Let's see. There is a question from Ayesha, who's saying that I know. So there is like a little bit of a comment and then a question, which goes. I know a very well-known organization who has been using an AI assessment screening program for all its positions. And what
Okay.
they have found is that people from engineering backgrounds tend to score well on the test, whereas commercial functions have not been able to clear the test at all. And so
Yeah.
much so, the company is thinking of dropping this step in the recruitment process. What could be the reasons for this not being successful? Could it be that the organization just was not ready for this?
So I will go back. My first inclination would be that the tool that they're using is only using one set of assessment. So I talked about that there are 4 assessments that this platform that I talked about is using. It's behavioral, it's personality, it's cognitive, and it's the 4th one I even forgot, right? Most of the platforms out there, unfortunately, are either personality or cognitive or aptitude, right? So it is very likely that if that platform is only using, for example, cognitive abilities, right, and you're getting everybody to go through a cognitive test, it is very likely that the engineering guys are scoring more because it's
Mm-hmm.
only one factor. Now we know engineers generally think in a very different way than business guys,
Yes.
right? So if that platform is geared towards people with that sort of ability and skill set, obviously the engineers are going to score really well. So again, it goes back to the point that the whatever assessment you do, we have to make sure that it's holistic. I can see a comment from Sandrine that there is a lot of bias
Yes.
in recruitment models with AI, for example, against black people or females. And I couldn't agree more. And that's my point again, that platforms, if it's single-sided or if there's room for bias, unfortunately, this is going to happen, right? And this is one example. We need to look at platforms and products that really are not going to have any sort of biases at them, at least at the front. We cannot, I don't think we can completely get rid of biases completely, but as much as possible, the purpose of using these would be to take away biases. I would love to have a compensation tool that takes away the biases and says, I don't care who you are. If you meet these criteria, you should get more money because it's differentiation based, right? Um, we're not there. And I would hope that companies who find out that there are these biases are able to talk about it so that other companies benefit from it. If you've suffered unfortunately because of a bad tool that has these biases, then I hope that you're able to share what's good and what's bad about these tools so that other companies can watch out for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have another question, which goes like this. Do you think that we can use AI for organizational development and employee engagement? If yes, in which way would it be helpful?
So I think employee engagement is happening already. Like I said, for example, a lot of employee engagement tools, for example, employee surveys, for example, engagement surveys, recognition tools, some of the other platforms that talks about so-called performance management. It's not really performance management, but it's basically to give you more control about goal setting and goal evaluation. They are based on this, and I think it definitely would help. For example, if I felt comfortable about that the platform that we're using in the company is unbiased and it's actually to help me develop, then why not? There are a couple of learning platforms which I think are AI based, or they're really nice. And so why wouldn't they increase employee engagement? So if I, for example, LinkedIn as an example, right? What is
Yeah.
LinkedIn? LinkedIn is essentially a learning platform, right? And so I go to LinkedIn and I read all these stuff and I talk about the jobs. And I know it's not linked to my company, but if you had a mini LinkedIn so-called in your company, then why wouldn't it increase employee engagement? I hope I answered the question.
Okay, so actually Sandrine who made a comment,
Yeah,
which I really love that, because whatever we do, it is still actually created by humans. She
yeah.
wants to ask a question maybe, or leave a
Sure, sure.
comment. So
Yeah, yeah.
Sandrine, you are already unmuted. You can speak up.
Okay, thank you very much, Sajjad. The great presentation. I have a question for you, which I've been wondering myself. Typically, the compensation and benefits community is, how can I say, more tech-oriented and more data-oriented than maybe other parts of HR.
Yeah.
Yet, I feel that we are maybe one of the functions which is the slowest in adopting new technology. I see a
Yeah.
lot of my clients are still using, old-fashioned spreadsheets for
Yeah,
salary reviews and
yeah,
so on. And I wonder why this is. Do you think it's due to the people are scared of because of the confidentiality of
yeah,
data or
yeah.
something like that? What's your view on that?
Yeah, so I mean, this is just my personal view. So I think there are probably two parts to it. The first one is the comp professionals themselves. So based on my experience, okay, so I think the first one, when I say comp professionals, it's not that the comp guys don't know it. I think one of the challenges we've had is that the comp professionals are, uh, if you really take people who have hardcore 15, 20 years of comp experience, generally, especially in APAC, and I think you probably know this as well, there are not enough people, right? I can definitely tell you in Singapore, representing APAC to a certain extent, we don't have enough people with really deep dive comp experience, 15, 20 years, who
Yes.
really understand comp inside out. I think
Yes.
that's one dependency. If you think about all these tools that are coming up, obviously they're coming up from people who have a lot of experience. We can't make really amazing comp tools if people don't have a lot of experience, right? So somebody in compensation needs to figure out that, okay, I've had enough of my job. I'm going to get out and I'm going to develop a tool that's going to help us, right? Um, and the second comment to your question would be that I think comp is not as simple, to your point. It is a bit technical, right? There, I mean, you know that it's an art and a science both. It's not as simple as some of the other ones. And because it gets technical and there's so many things to consider, and we're looking at such large data sets, perhaps it's something that we haven't really thought about, that we probably need really, the only tool that we've had for all these years is basically a salary survey tool. That's the only thing we've had. And we know, again, at least from my experience, that if you ask any company, are you happy with your salary survey? The answer is always a no, right? I mean, I can
Yes.
definitely tell you from my experience that in all these years that I've been suffering salary surveys, rarely have I been happy with salary surveys. So, and it's not rocket science. I really find it hard to believe that we still can't figure out salary surveys, let alone other compensation, tools. So I think we as people who've spent, I don't know, all our lives in compensation, probably need to think about what can we do, how can we change the tide, and uh, get that rigor in. The one comment I'm going to make is that a lot of tools out there are developed by people perhaps who don't have enough corporate experience. I think what we need is people who understand the pain on the side of the companies, who can now come out and say
Yes.
that what I'm going to do is to solve the problem that companies are facing. There's no point of me talking to somebody who's never worked on my side and is giving me a tool from his or her perspective. And I think maybe that's the equation needs to change. I actually do have a friend who's actually working on a tool like that, and she's spent years in compensation, and she's a very good friend of mine. She's actually working on a tool, and I've been talking to her about what can we do. And so hopefully, I think once we get that, I will definitely let you know about that tool. I think it
Yeah.
will add value, and I think that's the kind of decisions and that's the kind of discussions we need to have. We need people who have suffered in companies enough
Yes.
to say this is what we need that will solve the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, like if you still want to talk to each other, you can just connect with LinkedIn, right,
Yeah,
Sandrine?
we will.
Done
Absolutely.
already.
Yeah, Sandrine, can I unmute you? Can I mute you right
Sure.
now?
Sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thanks to you for the
Thank you.
question. And basically, we are kind of out of the time. We're already like 1:31. We promised like to keep it for 1 hour, but Sajjad, are you still available for other questions?
Yeah, if you have,
You
I'm
are.
happy to take more.
Okay, great. Dear participants, I understand like we want to be very respectful to your time. If you want to still stay with us, if you still want to discuss with Sajjad the questions that you might have, please stay here. And or if you want to, or if you have something else to do, like you can go there. And let me just share my screen to let you know that still, if you have some time, if you don't have time to stay with us, but you want to listen to us more or connect with Sajjad, I will just share my screen, and here you can see actually Sajjad's and my connection contact information that you can connect with us later if you want on LinkedIn, by email, etc. Okay. So to keep this just for a few seconds, and we'll just take some other questions. So one of the questions, Sajjad, that I read, it was a little bit funny. It was like, doesn't HR have to be a mathematician? You know, because it is all about big data, and you need to also get information from the data. It's not just about looking at numbers, right?
Yeah. No, not really. I'll give you my example. I did my bachelor's in computer science, right? So when I graduated, did I know that I'm going to spend my entire life in HR? No, I don't think we need to have a degree in math or need to have. I think what I do feel, and I guess it's just my personal observation, HR needs to be comfortable with numbers in general. And I do see that some of the people that I have interacted with, some of the people that I've worked with, they haven't been fully comfortable with managing numbers. So especially when I get a little bit technical in terms of a compensation proposal or some of the analysis, I do see like the color go away from the face because they're not completely happy. This is not to say that it's a bad thing, but I think if you want to partner with the business is about numbers, right? It's a fundamental skill set that we need to develop as HR. If you want the business to trust us, we got to be comfortable about talking about numbers. And I think so you don't need a degree in math, but I think as we talked about the evolution of analytics, we're going to have all these technology platforms coming in. We need to be comfortable with numbers, I think, and that's going to help in as an HR professional anyways.
Okay. The other question is that will AI be able to handle tasks that require a more personal touch?
Can you repeat that again?
The question is, no, will AI be able to handle tasks that require a more personal touch?
I think that's what's happening already, right? So if you think about the fact in talent assessment, for example, the piece that we used to do, which is looking at through the resumes, right? That used to be a manual exercise, which required a personal touch because we wanted to make sure, okay, we've looked at the resume, we've looked at everything, but AI is already doing that. And so if you think about even the example I gave on the HR chat box, that there were a lot of things that we used to do manually and physically, where we would go to HR shared services and say, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Either face to face or through email or through whatever. Now AI is able to help us do that. So I think that's already happening, and I don't see any reason why it's not, because if it's a very manual process, it's not adding anybody, it's not helping anybody. We're wasting everybody's time. So if a tool can automate that, we can start to do more value added work.
Okay. The other question is about this. Don't you think that AI will decrease the personal connections within staff members and managers? Don't you think like about the disadvantages that this brings?
I don't think so. I mean, to me, like I said, we have to go back to the why again. I'm sorry, I keep coming back to the why, but I think it's very important. Why are we doing a certain thing? Why are we implementing a technology, right? The technology is to help us. In fact, I think that if we actually use the right technology and platforms, the quality of conversations HR is going to have with the business is going to become much better. Right now, for a lot of conversations, it's more like, I need this help, I need that help, right? It's very manual. But if all of that can be taken away, now HR is going to work on things that are really going to add value. The discussions we're going to have with the managers and leaders is going to be very different. It's going to be based on data. It's going to be based on analytics, right? So in an essence, actually, I think that the conversation quality is going to improve. The decision making is going to improve with sort of technology coming in.
Okay. The other question is that so you have mentioned that by applying AI, can you add value in decision making? Can you give an example of recent strategic decision that you made and how you manage big data within your company?
Yeah. So I give you the example of the data-driven compensation model that we use, right? So the example, and again, it's gonna be a bit technical, so just bear with me.
Okay.
I, as a manager, when I have a team of 5 people, right, I look at the salary budgets and I give whatever based on my understanding, right? Now, we know that there are managers who are very generous, and we know there are managers who are very strict, right? So there's a manager who's very generous, he'll give everybody 10% versus a budget of 5%. And there's a manager who's just never happy and he's going to give like 2% versus 5%, right? So the purpose of the model is to make sure that we take out all these manager characteristics from the equation. If I have done well, then versus the budget, I should get X times. But what about a manager and an employee that's sitting in, for example, Turkey, right? And I have an employee and manager similarly in HR sitting in US. How do we make sure that the same methodology is applying in Singapore, in Dubai, in Armenia, in Turkey, in US, and Australia? In a manual process, it's never going to happen. You cannot go and police 10,000 managers and say, this is what you have to do. It's never going to happen. No company can do that. No company has done that. But with a model, it can look, like I said, the data model looks at the factors and says it applies the same methodology on salary increases, on bonus, on equity. The other example I would give you is there a company that can guarantee and make sure that people who have done really well, who are your top raters, get maximum bonus and maximum equity, for example? You can't guarantee that. If you have a 100,000 employee organization, are you going to go through each and every employee's thing and then measure and do equitable adjustment? It's not going to happen, right? But a tool with sophisticated AI at the back maybe and data models at the back and say, if you got a rating of 1, we're going to make sure that this is the band that we have to apply. So physically, it's impossible. It's obviously it can be done. It's going to take you 6 months just to do that exercise for a large company. But if you have a sophisticated tool at the back, it can look at things that we in HR can't do. So it's just one very basic example of how the tool and technology can actually add value and do things that we can't right now.
Okay. Okay. So whoever wants to see again our contact, just let me know, because for a few minutes I again shared my screen so that you can see, because I got a request from some of our participants to again share the screen for the contacts. Let me know if you still need them. I think any final words from you, Sajjad? Do you have any final words? Because I think that we have actually ended up with the questions right now.
All right. No. My only thing is, obviously this is a massive topic. Like I said, I'm not the expert of this topic in any way. But as far as compensation or engagement or top talent management is concerned, you have any questions, you want to have a discussion, you're looking for help, please reach out to both of us. We're here to help you. If we can't help you directly, we will find people who can help you. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us. You've already shared our contact details. I will look forward to keeping in touch and taking the conversation forward.
Great. And those whoever are, worried about where's the recording, where are the slides, we are going to share with you not only this webinar recording and the slides, we're also going to share with you the previous 2 webinar recordings. Okay, so don't worry about that. You will have them absolutely. And if you will have any questions, any, I don't know, technical problems with that, just please reach out to me. We'll do everything that you have, everything at hand that you need. So right now, actually, I wanna start actually the giveaway part. I love this part. This is actually fun to do. And in our previous webinar, actually, Sandrine was the winner. And in this webinar, we're gonna again start to understand who's the winner. This is on a random basis. I'll just share my screen to do that. And just one of the simplest rules that we had for the second webinar participants is that the winner list is the list who have at least kind of participated for like 35 minutes, that have been 35 minutes in the session, and that's it. And the second rule is just like to be lucky. And for those who don't know, like what's the prize, actually, since we have a lot of extra time this quarantine, We want to give not only information and useful actually information with the webinars, but we wanted to gift you like this book. I don't know if it's kind of, if you can see it, but it is called Carrot Principle, which is written by Adrian Gostick and Chester Elton, which is a New York Times bestseller, and it's based on a 10-year study of 200,000 managers and employees, and it is about how the best managers use recognition to engage their employees, retain talent, and accelerate performance. And we're just gonna, I don't know, either ship you or, I don't know, send you maybe a Kindle, whatever you want. Let me just right now share the screen. Sajjad, actually let me know if you see the screen with the Excel file. Do you see it?
I do, yes.
Okay, great. So these are the names and surnames of the people. I'm just gonna, from webinar 2, I'm just gonna copy this, and I'm gonna go to this website, which is like called Wheel of Names. I'm gonna paste the names and surnames of people here, and then I'm gonna shuffle it. Do you see the screen, Sajjad? Because the last time I think it was not really visible.
No, I can only see the Excel still.
Oh, okay. Let me just stop sharing and do it again, because I don't know. Let's see, share screen. When you sit, can you see it right now?
Yeah, now I can, yes.
Okay, yeah, so this is the wheel of names. I have
Oh,
pasted,
nice.
you know, yeah, I just shuffled it, and let's just click on it and see like who's the winner.
Very nice.
I love this part. Oh, okay, so this is Hasmik Manukyan from webinar 2, and actually I really don't know whether we have actually Hasmik today with us, but if you are here, please let me know. But anyway, I'm gonna reach out to Hasmik myself personally, okay? And I know that you have right now question, okay, how are we going to choose the third webinar winner? Don't worry, I'm gonna do a video. I'm gonna share the screen and do the video. Either I will put it in the LinkedIn, our LinkedIn page, or I'll put it in the Facebook, and maybe I will do Facebook Live. And actually, I can share with you the links of our LinkedIn and Facebook page so that you can find us there and you can see the video. I'll put there our video, I guess, either by today evening or by tomorrow afternoon. We'll see, whichever it works. So let me just a few seconds till I go to Facebook and LinkedIn and copy the links and put it in the chat. But if you have some final words, dear participants, if you have some final, I don't know, thoughts and ideas, please do let me know. And after I end this, our webinar, there is a survey that will pop up. It's like a very, very short survey, and it will ask you, because we want to make this continuous, our webinars, and it will just ask you, who do you imagine to be our next webinar guest, and who do you imagine to be maybe the next webinar topic that you would like to talk to. So in the chat, I'm putting our Facebook page where we will most probably post the winner, and in just a few seconds I'll put it our LinkedIn page. And Sajjad, I really, really want to say thank you for being our guest for like the third time. I'm grateful for your time commitment, and I'm sure we will remember you. Everyone will remember you as a super guest with super powerful slides. Okay.
No, it's been my pleasure. It's been fun doing this. Happy to take, like I said, the conversation forward. Please feel free to reach out. Like I said, if I can help with anything, if you need, sort of want to talk about compensation or anything else in HR, or looking for help, very happy to advise and be in touch. And of course, just keep the conversation going.
Cool. Yeah, that's it. So you have the LinkedIn and Facebook links in the chat. Please follow them. Anyway, I'll connect with the winner myself just to make sure that everything is fair. We just do it on a random basis. Yeah, so hope everything was fine. Hope we met all of your expectations, and have a great day. And please fill the survey, or I don't know, if you don't have anything in your mind right now, connect with us again. Just drop off your ideas and feedback and thoughts. I'll be happy to have them. Thank you very much, dear participants. Hope we used your time in a very, very respectful and useful way. Bye-bye, and have a great day, and stay well and safe.